Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen. Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be... it's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen, or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
You go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about sex.
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. Oh, my hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out about a Gambian man convicted of raping a British woman who's been awarded a big payout for unlawful detention in a migrant detention centre. That's soft touch Britain. Come for the sexual assault, stay for the free money. And Wes Streeting is under fire over not dishing out puberty blockers, which is ironic considering Wes Streeting looks like his puberty was blocked when he was about 12. I think Wes is going to make a play for the top job in the Labour Party. His pronouns identify as P/M. And Keir Starmer celebrated Burns Night with a drag queen. Of course he did. Who tried to drag J.K. Rowling through the mud. But to be fair, Scotland has a long history of big lumpy men wearing tartan skirts. I've got a tartan mini on under the desk right now. But has Keir kilt his credibility? I'm Leo Kirse, and tonight I've got tip-top comedians Kerry Marks and Simon Evans taking you through tomorrow's top stories. There they are, ready to go. But this is Headliners. But before Monday's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. The top story just after 11 o'clock. Well, Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump have agreed to meet soon following a call tonight that highlighted the strong and the enduring ties between the UK and the United States. In that conversation, Donald Trump expressed his condolences to the Prime Minister after the loss of his brother and praised his leadership and efforts so far in office. The pair also discussed key issues including the Middle East, and Sir Keir Starmer thanked Donald Trump for his role in the Gaza ceasefire deal. The United States President also welcomed the release of the British hostage Emily Damari and spoke warmly of his respect for the royal family. The Home Secretary has warned online platforms they must act now to remove violent content after the Southport killer accessed extremist material before his deadly attack. Axel Rudakabana, who murdered 3 young girls and tried to kill 10 others, downloaded an al-Qaeda training manual and watched graphic footage online just before the stabbing spree. Yvette Cooper says it's unacceptable that such hateful content remains easily available and is urging tech companies to take immediate action. The government has also announced a public inquiry into missed chances to stop Rudakabana, who was already known to police and anti-extremism authorities. Well, the government is also cracking down on online knife sales after it was revealed that Axel Rudakabana purchased his murder weapon on Amazon when he was just 17 years old. Under tough new rules, buyers will need to show photo ID at the point of purchase and again when the knife is delivered, with packages banned from being left on doorsteps. Delivery drivers will also only be allowed to hand knives to the person who ordered them. That's in plans set to feature in the Crime and Policing Bill. The Home Secretary says it is a total disgrace that dangerous weapons are still so easy for children to get hold of. The Chancellor has dropped a major hint today that she will back Heathrow's third runway, saying it could boost the economy and align with climate goals. Rachel Reeves told broadcasters today that advances in electric aviation mean flights could land quicker, cut fuel use and cut delays. But she did stress the decision will need the full backing of the Cabinet after opposition from some senior Labour figures. Her comments come as the government is gearing up to announce airport expansions, but campaigners are warning a third runway at Heathrow could be risky and costly. A final announcement is expected in a key speech on Wednesday. And fierce winds have hit southwest England as the UK braces for more rain and gales as another storm, Storm Hermina, sweeps in. 80-mile-an-hour gusts have been recorded in Cornwall, with coastal areas at risk of reaching 70 overnight. Earlier, 2 men sadly died after falling trees struck their cars during another storm, and thousands have been left without power. Rain warnings are also in place across England and Wales, with up to 80 millimetres expected in some areas, risking some floods. That's the news on GB News. Plenty more still to come here on GB News. Now, though, it's time for Headliners.
Thank you, Sam, and hello and welcome to Headliners. It's your first look at tomorrow's top stories with 3 tip-top comedians. I include myself in that. Let's kick off with a look at some of the front pages. The Express has Never Forget. It's the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. The Times has Starmer defies Trump over cash for defence. The Guardian has Trump accused of ethnic cleansing over calls for Palestinians to quit Gaza. So let's have a look at those, starting with the Daily Express. Simon, they've got...
I think that's Kerry's one,
sorry.
the Daily Express, that's all right.
I don't mind. Either
You
way,
go
I'm
ahead.
happy to go with it. Holocaust Memorial and the Never Forget written in big at the top of the Daily Express. I don't think people have forgotten it, you know. I don't think people do forget it. It's mentioned quite a lot. I do think that it's not really about remembering it. It's more about how you remember it. And I think a lot of people are remembering it very wrongly because now it's so misunderstood that what happened is being compared to just about every war.
Yeah.
And Israel-Gaza is being seen as some similarity or some representation of the Holocaust. Of course, with the Holocaust, and it wasn't just Jews, but it was, you know, gypsies and so on, and gay people. But largely there was a final solution that was intended to completely eradicate Jewish people. And it's weird, as a Jewish person, to know only decades ago there was an attempt to completely destroy an entire people. And it wasn't because they had hostages to give back and refused, and it wasn't because they started off an attack or because they demanded from any equivalent of river to the sea of another country. There was no demand. There was no way out. There was no escape. It was a hunting down of people across Europe to completely destroy them. And I think it should be remembered, but it's being very misremembered now.
I guess, you know, 80 years is a long time, and it does seem to be slipping from, you know, this is something that was, you know, totemic in my childhood as, you know, the ultimate example of evil. But now looking at, you know, the demonstrations you get in the streets of London, looking at, you know, pro-Palestinian people on TikTok, looking at a lot of Britain's left-wing people and left-wing people in America, they seem to have completely forgotten the lessons. They want to seem to repeat it.
Well, I don't know about repeat it. 80 years is, as you say, a long time. For instance, the 80th anniversary of D-Day was commemorated, of course, a year ago, and I think by common consent there is a general understanding that that's probably it. That will be the last commemoration of that event, the last time that any veterans are expected to cross over to the beaches of Normandy. 80 years is an extraordinarily... It's a healthy lifespan, let alone one that goes back to something you can remember. I think there's another column about it on one of the other front pages saying that a few years years ago, they had 300 survivors, but this time it's down to sort of 50 or something visiting Auschwitz and so on. And, I mean, remember is obviously, you know, it's a journalese word, never forget, but, of course, there is nobody around to remember the First World War anymore. I can remember when there were survivors and veterans of the First World War on Poppy Day. They've gone now. I remember very clearly the last one died. He was a neighbour of mine. He was in a rest home in Hove, the very last one to have served, These kind of milestones do move forward. Time is absolutely ruthless in this regard. As you know, as you get a bit older yourself, you start to realise it. And the ways in which things are commemorated do also change in that regard. And history is constantly subject to revisionism, as perhaps arguably it needs to be. We do constantly need to address what the Holocaust was. It wasn't simply a sequence of camps. It also included just lining people up and shooting them in the back of the head and kicking them into a ditch. It included the eradication of villages. It included people being expected to make their Jews available to the invading forces and so on. There were a lot of elements
which
to
they
it.
did very enthusiastically.
They did,
When the Nazis reached France, they stated how many Jews they wanted rounded up, and the French said, "We think we can double that." And do you know what they did?
Famously,
that's what really it's all about. It's about all the people who joined in with it. It's about the machine that formed. And really, the problem is we want to put this down onto some kind of German mentality or something like this, but really it's about understanding human nature. That's what we should be doing. We should be understanding the systems that encourage gruesome and hatred that allows people to rise to the top and run these things. And that's a better way of understanding who we are and what we're
reassure you, we would never do that on this show because we wouldn't have a show if we did that. Moving on, we've got the Times, Simon, with Starmer to defy Trump.
Yes, interesting account of Starmer's conversation with Donald Trump, which they characterise as warm and personal, which is encouraging because I think a lot of us had been concerned that Trump had got off on the wrong foot with Starmer or vice versa, and certainly to the extent that Elon Musk is regarded as a sort of ventriloquist puppet or I don't know, he's a sort of mascot figure. He's slightly cartoonish, but, you know, it seems that Trump himself has a lot more time for Starmer than he does, that they had an engaging and good-natured conversation in which apparently they tiptoed around flashpoint topics such as the tariffs and the Chagos Islands sovereignty deal and so on.
Why wouldn't they?
They're going to have to get there sooner or later. But yeah, I mean, I personally think the British defence spending should be kept at 2.5% of GDP. Higher, if anything. The only country, I think we're reasonably good by European standards. Only Poland is significantly higher.
Lithuania as well.
But it's a really good way of demonstrating that you're serious, not just about your commitment to NATO and other countries, but also about your own defence. You know, I mean, a lot of people, I think, feel quite concerned about Britain's armed forces at the moment. You know, whether we'd even be able to sort of stand in for the fire service and defend our borders. So,
and also, Keir Starmer, I mean, you know, things got so bad this summer. We weren't that far away from the military having to be sent in to deal with disorder on the streets. So surely he'd want a military that can deal with disorder on the streets, you know, just in case we have terrible events this summer as well.
Internally and externally, we are needing a military, and the way the world is looking right now, it's very unsafe. Anything could, you know, fire up at any moment. And what we're doing is getting rid of the Chagos Islands, which is a military base, which doesn't seem to be the right move either at the moment.
Well, it certainly seems to have alienated America. That's not a good start.
Yeah, because I mean, we weren't going to invade China, but they might. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't want us to get rid of that. Moving on to the Guardian, we've got Trump being accused of ethnic cleansing over calls for Palestinians to quit Gaza.
Do you want me to do this one?
Well, up to you. I had a look at the bit earlier. It's very difficult to be sure whether or not he meant they should be turfed out of Gaza or whether they should be given the opportunity to live somewhere while Gaza is being rebuilt.
Oh, right.
And I think there's arguably a deliberate degree of ambiguity in the way he's expressed. You know, well, what can I say? You know, but
and also we've seen with refugees when they go somewhere else to live while their place is getting rebuilt.
Well, they've already done Jordan, haven't they? They did Jordan. They ended up with 20,000 of them being killed in a war they started.
Well,
they want to take over. But it's also 70% of Jordan is actually Palestinians anyway. There's an argument that why the land went to the Hashemites in the first place. There was no real right for that, other than they helped the British in the war against the Ottomans, and that was part of their reward, which the British also offered to the Jews who helped in the war. But they were offering everything. They basically offered the same piece of land to lots of different people, the same as God did. Although,
God should really have
not much.
God should have drawn better lines on the map. You know, more succinct, defined
Terrible
borders. But I think the Palestinians in Jordan aren't really seen it in the same way as, you know, Palestinian refugees now would go, because the Palestinian refugees who went in the 80s totally destabilised Jordan and led an armed coup against the government and tried to, you know, teamed up with Syria to try and attack the government.
And then in Lebanon as well, which happens again and again. And that's
in Lebanon as well. Lebanon is still a complete
this.
basket case because of Palestinian refugees went there and completely upset the balance, and then had all the backing from all the, you know, nefarious regimes around. So I mean, you can understand Middle Eastern countries not wanting to take Palestinian refugees, but I'll tell you what, I bet Keir Starmer and a lot of people in the Labour Party want the Palestinian refugees.
Yes, they want. We'll take them. Yeah, it's been that way for a while. I don't even understand why. Is this about the piece of land, or are people really concerned about the safety of the Palestinians? Because we saw that during the war. Yeah. We saw with Ukraine that the move was to get the vulnerable out of there. You know, and with when it came to Gaza, it was like no one was even shouting about the Rafah crossing. It's like they're right up against the Rafah crossing. You could have taken all the vulnerable people out of there, the elderly, the young, and so on, and no one even put any pressure on Egypt to do that, which is bizarre, right? And it's because they need them there. They want them there because they're actually a political force.
Yeah.
They use the buffer.
They are going to have to be sited somewhere while the place is being rebuilt, though. I mean, I don't know what the pragmatic solution is to that.
Well, it's a bit weird not to get them out during a war and then get them out during refurbishment.
I think it's going to be very. I think it's going to be very tricky. There are, you know, I understand what you mean about them sort of being used as a human shield and so on at all points. But there are thousands of people whose homes have been destroyed who are just being shepherded around.
And there have been criticisms of Israel possibly trying to expand. I mean, they've taken more land in Syria.
In the Golan Heights, but then that's largely because the Druze community. Well, there's several reasons. One is for security because it overlooks Israel and Lebanon.
Oh, I think it's a good thing.
But
there's some people who say
the Druze communities of the area got together and they had a vote saying they'd rather be under Israel control. And you've got to remember, when people are getting angry about this, it's also America has been controlling about a third of Syria all this time, and Turkey has been all over the place, bombing right, left, and centre.
And Syria's descended into sectarian warfare as we predicted it would. It hasn't. You know, we haven't had this sort of diversity guru going in and creating this multicultural state that functions.
Totally.
It's
but you know, also, Leo, I think that I'd be totally against the Palestinians being forced out of Gaza and so on. But for the last year and a half, in fact, for a lot longer, we've heard people at the level of in the United Nations, world leaders, their representatives, shouting for free Palestine from the river to the sea, calling for ethnic cleansing of the entirety of Israel, and no one's getting this upset. And then suddenly one world leader says, "How about we get people out for a little while?" And everyone's like, "Ethnic cleansing, impossible, can't do it." It's the same double standard that we always see. And I read through the Guardian article, and honestly, there's so many mistakes in it of mishistory. It's like marking an idiot child's homework.
It sounds like a Guardian article.
Yeah.
Moving on to some more front pages, we've got the Telegraph with Starmer and Trump set path for state visit.
Yes.
The Eye has A&E patients may be treated at home in Streeting's overhaul of NHS. And the Daily Star has 4 blimey. Apparently, we're having some storms this week. 4 of them. So, let's have a look at the Telegraph.
Well, the Telegraph, again, it's a similar story to the when it was the Times, whatever, with the Starmer and Trump having a bit of a love-in. Yes, possibility of he could be his very first state visit, in fact. And, of course, he had a lovely time here last time, met the Queen and so on, and he loves to show that photo album off. I've seen him showing it to random journalists on Air Force One. I think he genuinely does like the place. I think he would like to receive a good welcome, and I hope that this time around we will not indulge in the same ridiculous, childish, juvenile kind of, well, we don't like you over here and we're going to fly a blimp of you in a nappy.
We will. We will do that. You know that's going to happen.
Well, Sadiq Khan certainly will, I suppose. But I like to imagine that Charles is capable of accepting him, and, they probably share some sort of random interest in vegetables or something.
Well, he certainly accepted worse people.
Yeah, exactly.
But it'd be nice to see Labour, putting their bitter spite at a successful right-wing politician to one side, and doing what's good for the country.
Well, that's exactly what the royal family is for, of course. Being able to accept vaguely toxic people without it being a taint on the government. Not that I think of Trump that that way myself. But
I was going to say one of the parts of the article they're getting excited about is it could be the PM becomes the first European leader to speak to President in warm and personable chat, which is always massive to us, isn't it? It's like this running order of who everyone's against Trump and everyone wants to meet him first.
we can't just be first in teenage pregnancies and obesity. It would be good. Something like this as well, you know.
And we've got that story there about the police told not to say blacklist and black sheep over race fears, which would make describing some cattle rustling very difficult.
It is extraordinary, isn't it, how every time you think this stuff has been snuffed out, the College of Policing, where it all comes from, you think, oh, that's been done. Andrew Doyle has left the country, his work is done. But no, it's extraordinary. And to his credit, I can't see his name now, but a senior black policeman has said that this is absolutely absurd, and and has pointed out as well there has been no advice concerning the term whitewashing being offensive as well, which is quite right. I don't know.
Whiteboard, by the way. You can have a blackboard.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you can have a whiteboard, but you can't have a blackboard. How racist is that?
I don't know where all of these came from. Black sheep, obviously, is an actual thing. You know, if you go to the Lake District, you occasionally see a black sheep.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's regarded as being touched by Satan or whatever, but it just stood out. It wasn't necessarily even really a bad thing. Blacklist, is that... I don't know. If some of these things are found to have their origins in racist... You know, if that's where it comes from, blackballing or whatever...
Then we still keep them.
Well, yes, absolutely, but we acknowledge it.
It also says they have to understand the difference between non-racist and anti-racist, but surely that's just the difference between the word non and the word anti.
Well, the trouble with that is
all non and anti things,
anti-racism is used as a term by the left to describe things that are very racist. So when you have racist exams that discriminate and have different requirements for different ethnic groups, that's called anti-racism, when in fact it's racism.
That's actual racism,
Yes. It's the definition.
Can we still play chess? Is that allowed now? I mean,
oh, not at all. All the pieces are grey.
You can, but white doesn't get to go first, always. You have to toss for it. I have seen here it says that officers are made aware of the concept of white fragility. Not as in that's a racist term and it should not be used. Yeah. I mean, that is genuinely actually
How about
racist.
white sturdiness? White
White robustness.
Well, that's the front page is done. Still to come is Starmer guilty of two-tier policing over Southwark. Farage takes a pop at Trump. And where are the 2 million Palestinians going to go? We actually talked about that, but my guess is Birmingham. See you in a couple of minutes.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
A woman of 53 has believed for 18 months she was in an online relationship with Brad Pitt.
I think we're seeing pictures. So these are the pictures that she received that made her believe that she was in this relationship with Brad Pitt.
And you'll see that some of it is in hospital because the scammer was claiming that he was suffering from cancer. This was playing very much on her emotion. So this is a divorcee who lived in Mauritius. She'd received a £700,000 divorce settlement, or £650,000 divorce settlement, I should say, and £700,000 has been taken from her through this scam.
Yeah.
As she was becoming, every time she became suspicious, the money was taken for payment of charges on gifts that she never received, and then hospital fees. There was lots of emotions being played into there. Now, as somebody, I'm a rom-com writer by trade, so I write romantic fiction. And one of the books I've written has actually been about somebody who did online dating, got herself into a whole heap of trouble. Not quite. She wasn't in a relationship with Brad Pitt, but she met somebody dodgy. So because I've written that book, I've met a lot of people who've come up to me and said, "Oh, it's happened to me."
It's scary in this digital age, isn't it?
They've lost $700,000, but somebody has tried it on. Somebody my question is, would a man go 18 months in a relationship online without seeing somebody and keep it going? Or is this feeding into this neediness of a particular demographic of a woman who that's better than anything else she got going on in her life, was what was being fed to her over the internet? And
then maybe a little bit of her knew, but she kind of just suppressed it because she
was hoping it was Brad Pitt.
Her daughter apparently for a year was saying, this can't be true, come on, think about it. But she just fell for it. But I just wonder, it's a very sad story. She's obviously now getting a lot of hate and ridicule as well.
Because she's been on French TV and she's had a huge amount of pushback from it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We're kicking off this section with The Telegraph, and Starmer is accused of two-tier policing with the Southport killer. Compared to the rioters, it's almost as if Keir has picked a side already, Kiri.
Yeah, Starmer took unequal approach to Southport killers and rioters, says Badenoch. Now, I'm going to say two things about this that I think are very important, and if they're not, I'm still going to say them importantly, to give you that feel, you know.
Yeah.
First of all, my first thing on this is, yes, Starmer said that he was that he couldn't say anything about the killer because it would prejudice the trial. And when that news came out that it would be considered contempt, I was on GB News that night, and I said that therefore that should thwart all the convictions against the rioters and so on, because he has broken exactly the same rule.
Yeah, the Home
and
Office
he said they
described
are
them
far
as
right. He described them as gangs of thugs and so on.
And criminals. The Home Office described them as criminals before this was before the trials.
But my point is really that Badenoch saying this now, I've already said it. I shouldn't be here agreeing with her. She should be saying, I agree with Carey. Yeah. And I'm fed up with the way this works, you know. People aren't really appreciating me enough. But it's also another point she makes that I don't fully agree, and I'm hearing this a lot, about that it's all about integration, that people should come into the country and they should integrate. And I know this is the common feeling on it, but I don't think it is, you know. I think there's lots of identities in this country that don't really integrate. If you take the Chinese community just as an example, no one cares whether they're speaking their language, our language, whether they're going to university or not. We'd like them to enjoy everything in the country as much as any other identity. It's really about an identity that expects us to integrate towards them. That's the difference. That's where you get the Charlie Hebdo. That's where you get the blasphemy laws that are in discussion right now. It's, do we change our culture to suit another culture rather than whether their culture settles into this culture?
Yeah.
And I think we're getting that a bit the wrong way around.
And it does feel that there are still unanswered questions over Axel Rudikabana and, you know, his history and, you know, why he was here. And
well, we're hearing from everyone it's all the fault of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk.
And knives and violent videos
a knife
online.
that he could have bought anywhere, rather than nothing to do with an Al-Qaeda handbook that tells you how to commit terrorism. Sorry, Simon.
No, but, I mean, I was going to say, I think you're exactly right, Leo. And actually, I mean, unusually, I think we really haven't got to the bottom of it yet. I really don't think we do understand Axel Rudikabana's motivations or possible mental instability or whatever it is. You know, the judge was quite happy to say that he wasn't... he could not, you know, plead any degree of mental instability as a defence or mitigation, but it clearly was, by any kind of normal standards, absolutely maniacal in his loathing of these girls. I would be very hesitant myself to draw any conclusions, to extrapolate any broader fears from this particular case. It's always tempting to do so. We've seen all kinds of commentary in the Guardian and also on the right about what it means and what it demonstrates. It's hard to say that. You know, extreme cases like this make bad law as a rule, and I think we have to be very careful about making sweeping statements. But I do think we need to investigate further exactly what influences he was subject to, as you mentioned, possibly within his own family or what he downloaded online as well. And absolutely agree with you, James O'Brien on LBC attempting to lay it at Jeff Bezos' door.
That was absolutely insane. And it's
disgraceful, nauseating.
Yeah. But also on Keir Starmer saying that he said at the time his initial reaction was not to rush to criticise or people who are rushing to criticise and didn't have any right to. And now he's saying that people do have a right to criticise or to at least ask questions. Yeah. That should have been the case straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the case, whatever you think, the case was so incredibly horrific.
And this myth that if anybody had asked questions or if anybody had said anything, then, there couldn't be a trial, as if he's going to be walking the streets after doing that. I mean, that's an absolute nonsense. The judge could just turn around and say, disregard those comments.
Sure.
And, you know, he's obviously going to get convicted is a nonsense. But
the only thing that was a genuine legal issue was that they couldn't announce his name, I think, until it had to be specifically overruled because the presumption was of anonymity because of him being 17.
Yeah.
Well,
even though he was only a week short. But a
week before he was 18 or something.
But he either is or he isn't. But that was overruled 3 days later anyway, and that information came out. But by then, of course, the ball was rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a big vacuum that was filled.
Yeah.
We've got the Daily Mail now with the latest in the soap opera of elite right-wing transatlantic politicians.
Yes, so this is the three-way, the Isle of Man little leggy sort of thing that runs round and round and round with Nigel Farage and Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Again, I mean, I've said earlier about the way that Trump and Musk have triangulated Starmer has been interesting, and also, of course, they've triangulated Farage. Farage has criticised Trump for pardoning a blanket pardon across all of the 1,500 people who were arrested and imprisoned because of the riot or the insurrection or the away day or whatever you want to call it on January the 6th. I mean, 1,500 people. It does seem to me it seems to me like it was a blanket arrest and prosecution, which would seem to ask for a blanket pardon.
Yes,
there's no way there were 1,500 people all equally or even significantly guilty of a criminal offence on that day.
Well, yeah,
a lot of people were just sucked in. It was people were wandering around stealing ashtrays. It was absurd.
Yeah, and a lot of people were just there waving a little flag and basically having a nice time. I mean, there's footage of them walking within the guide ropes in the museum, which after we'd had months and months of the BLM, fiery but mostly peaceful riots where people were dying and getting shot and businesses being burnt down.
And I've got to say as well, the Daily Mail in its coverage, the Daily Mail is slightly schizophrenic on these sort of issues at the moment, isn't it? Have you noticed they used to be like a fairly well-based, right-wing sort of solid, tutting in your first-class carriage. They've suddenly come out as, I don't know, there's a lot of hand-wringing. They go, 1,500 people, including white supremacists, which is, I mean, it's a political view. You may or may not be able to make it stick with some of these people, but it's not illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, Churchill was a white supremacist, it's not necessarily a criminal offence, and they are talking about these people as if he's sort of unleashed, demons from hell. I've seen photographs of people coming out and being reunited with their wives. They look like me, old men in their 60s and 70s with white hair. Who may or may not. They do. Suspiciously.
Now you've said it, I think.
Well, I saw a father reunited with his daughter, his toddler daughter, and it was so touching. And it's like, why is this guy in jail? But you're letting maniacs rampage the streets. It's
people who set target on light with a petrol bomb, they're kind of going now.
I think there's other things going on here as well, though. I think we also really need to address the use of lawfare in order to get things happening. It's happening over here, it's happening in America, we're seeing it an awful lot. And it all kind of disqualifies itself at the same... the same as the royal pardon itself that they have with this presidential, sort of...
Well, I was saying...
I think it's getting silly, and it shouldn't be happening, because law should mean something in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think we're being very insincere about it.
The system of presidential pardons handed out at the end of a presidency has become a bit like the American equivalent of the honours system.
Yeah.
Who do you get to pardon? Which prisoners do you spring from jail? It's like having a feast day in ancient Rome or something. It's not a good sign.
It's also at the same time, right now, Israel is releasing prisoners who have committed horrifying acts of murder and blowing up buses and so on, and people aren't seeing the problem with that. And at the same time, they're upset about releasing these insurrectionists.
They've all been given a souvenir pager to take away.
We've got The Guardian now, and Trump has suggested moving Palestinian... Oh, wait, we've covered that one already. Let's move on to this one. The Guardian now with some bad news for Trump as the Democrats take steps to keep those pesky cat-eating illegals in the USA, Simon.
Yes, they are. This is interesting. There is going to be a sort of, as you say, a kind of lawfare battle again now. So the federal level, Trump is determined that all illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, whatever, undocumented peoples, are going to be shipped back to their home countries. But at state level, some of the Democratic administrations are against it. The headline reads, Democratic lawmakers devising legal obstacles to fight anti-immigration push. They are not, I think, in a position to actually just grant them citizenship, as it were, but they can do things like expand the education and medical medical processes available, and so on. And of course, they are already have certain rules about whether you can be arrested. There are sort of sanctuary cities. There are sanctuary areas. You can't be captured by ICE in church or in hospitals. It's like medieval Britain. You know, you gain access to the church and you can't be nicked.
Yeah.
And it does kind of look, I mean, I've been saying this for some time now, but it does kind of look as if America is splitting more and more along certain quite sort of well-established political lines, but it's becoming divided to the extent that all the Republican states are going to be accommodating and cooperating, and all the Democrat states are going to be resisting, and you're moving towards a really split country.
Almost secession, yeah. But I'm sort of surprised by the lack of pushback against Trump's ideas. I mean, we haven't seen mass protests, we haven't seen, buildings on fire and...
No, but I think he's caught them by surprise. I really think he's come in with a whole raft of measures, and they're trying to catch up and work out which is which and which one they're going to aim at first. Right. And they haven't solved it yet. And this one
is the winter, of course, as well.
And it's winter, of course. They like building fires.
Still to come, Keir shows he's in touch with the people by celebrating Burns Night with a drag queen. Elon Musk tells Germans to stop feeling guilty, and how to stop yourself getting deported. You've got to transition your kids. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. During the week ahead, we hold on to unsettled weather across the UK, further wet and windy weather to come, although signs of an improvement later on in the week. At the moment, low pressure is anchored towards the west of the UK. That's dominating our weather. Tightly packed isobars indicating pretty blustery conditions, and these weather fronts moving in from the south and southwest, bringing outbreaks of rain at times. One band of rain affects Scotland tonight, giving some hill snow, particularly above about 450 metres, where we'll see some settling snow here. And another area of rain moving in from the southwest across England and Wales into the early hours, some of which could be quite heavy, accompanied by blustery winds, particularly towards the southeast. It's mostly a frost-free night, with temperatures in mid-single figures. As for Monday, well, we hold on to a very unsettled picture. Low pressure still close by towards the west of the UK. So to start with on Monday, although there'll be some brightness towards the north of mainland Scotland, the rest of the country is likely to see some showery bursts of rain, again with some hill snow in places. Across Northern Ireland, there'll be showery bursts of rain as well, and showery too across parts of Wales into the southwest of England. So it's the south and east of England, some central parts too, that are likely to see the best of the early brightness. As we go through the rest of the day on Monday, with low pressure still close by, there'll be further outbreaks of rain at times in pretty much all parts of the UK. Occasional bright spells between, still some winteriness across the hills of Scotland at times, and wherever you are, a pretty blustery day with some gales, particularly down towards the south and southwest at times through the day. And despite some sunshine at times, those temperatures will be struggling. Highs of 6 to 9 Celsius, 9 down towards the southwest. It's 48 in Fahrenheit, but add on the effect of that unsettled weather and feeling much cooler out and about. As for Tuesday, well, with low pressure still over the top of the UK, there'll be further showers to come at times. Again, some of those could be quite heavy at times. The winds do start to ease down, so probably feeling a little bit better when we get the sunshine between those showers, with temperatures still peaking at around the 10 Celsius mark. So Tuesday and Wednesday continue pretty unsettled, further rain at times, but things do start to quieten down later in the week with some sunshine around.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Daily Mail now, and a Gambian man was convicted of raping a British woman and sentenced to 7 years in jail. But this is Britain, so we've now given him a big whack of taxpayers' money as compensation for getting in the way of his raping, Kiri.
Poor fella. It's really sad, isn't it? So, yes, he's from Gambia, and he was... he's called Abu Jasser, and he was over here on a 6-month visa, during which he raped a woman and then was put in prison for, I think it's 6 years. And then when he came out... also, by the way, he was charged with assaulting another woman, which I believe he denied the accusation. No charges were brought. And then finally he gets out. He's put into Colnbrook Immigration Removal Centre, which he's claimed is very unfair on him. And we've given him a massive payout, a level we don't know.
We gave him free housing. And he didn't like the housing, so now we're giving him lots of money. I mean, is this Britain? Is Britain just run by...
He feels he was wrongly treated being put in a detention centre for that amount of time, which...
I feel he's wrong.
The answer should have been the same answer that your mum gave you throughout your childhood, is you should have thought of that before you raped someone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my mum used to say.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I feel he was wrongly treated, Simon. He should have been, like, given a extremely harsh
He should have been
sentence.
castrated.
Castrated and thrown out of the country.
Yeah, he should. I always try and find what's the wrinkle in these ones. You know, what's the bit that what is somebody trying to get my blood pressure up and they're keeping an important detail to one. I just cannot see where it is. I cannot see what the. It's absolutely beggars belief. Even if he'd been put in jail while he was awaiting deportation.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, that is a bit. You know, you should put them in a. But.
It's a
he's been put in a facility designed for this purpose. And he's complained about it and he's won.
Yeah, I'd say if the law is paying out foreign rapists, there is something wrong with the law.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. And he's had 6 legal challenges in an attempt to remain in the UK. And obviously, we're going to be paying for those challenges, and we're also going to be paying to defend against those challenges. And also, they're being successful because we've got too many weak judges. And he's using pleas over his mental health and the harm he would face in his home country. Gambia is a peaceful country. You can go there on holiday. It's a nice place.
I mean, they'll arrest you if you rape somebody. But I mean, that's probably maybe that's what it's.
They're funny like that. They probably won't apologise.
They'll probably put him in a detention centre of some sort. Yeah.
Well, we've got the Telegraph now, and if you thought you were angry before, Simon, wait till you hear this one. We've got the perfect confluence of about 10 different issues that will make your blood boil. A wife-beating Jamaican drug dealer has avoided deportation because he's transitioning his child.
Yeah. This one is again, and this one is more complicated. It's slightly more baroque. But this individual, Jamaican drug dealer, has beaten up his wife in the sight of his own child, and yet it's for the child's mental health that he's being kept in this country. He mustn't be deported because she can turn to him to talk to him about, I say she, him, they, whatever, about their transitioning issues and gender issues. And also, according to this judge, who is named, incidentally, and I'm going to give her the benefit of giving her the publicity, Judge Sarah Pinder, who feels that... because it's a mixed-race child, he had a child with a white British woman, that there's an element of that child's cultural identity that he represents as being the black half of her parents, that she could not replicate. Even though he has literally beat up the mother in sight of this child, that's the level of parental care that he has demonstrated he's capable of.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, what can you say?
I've tried to find what I call the Simon wrinkle in the story, and I can't find it because it's also the judge has said that he needs to stay here because he's got a gender-questioning daughter who wouldn't have anyone else to go to. What, in this country? How about almost every teacher? How about like, most of the left you could go to right now and
throw a brick?
But it's also exactly. In any direction you'll find someone. But on top of that,
he's got a lot of clients who are dependent on him for crack cocaine and heroin as well.
Crack cocaine, heroin, and he beats up his wife. And they're also saying that she can't go to her mother for help because her mother has left because the father beat her up. So it's an extraordinary story.
So deportation would be elevated beyond just harshness to undue harshness, is of a sufficiently elevated degree to outweigh the public interest. This guy is a danger to the public and he should be deported. To say that this child's transitioning outweighs the public interest.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. No. And of course, he'll probably be allowed to stay. We've got the Daily Mail now, with Keir being ridiculed for celebrating Burns Night with a drag queen. To be honest, I thought it was just a regular woman from Dundee. I mean, Scotland has a long tradition of women turning skirts.
Yes, they do. And also a lot of women who look like little boys. What the hell is that all about? See why it all started there? Yes, this is a bit of a literal drag for Keir Starmer, isn't it? Furious Keir Starmer brings in drag queen who criticised J.K. Rowling over her views on gender to promote Burns Night. To be fair on this one, I don't fully get it as a major story. This is Lawrence Chaney, who's a drag queen. She won...
He's not trans, he's just drag, so you have to say
whatever. I don't even care. He won RuPaul's
got the memo.
Drag Race UK. I'll just use any words I want to use, frankly. So, yeah, but, you know, it's someone famous who's Scottish at a Burns Night, and the fact that he's criticised J.K. Rowling is relevant, but I don't think that means you can't take part in a Burns Night personally. I don't know whether he got to read the poem to the haggis or anything. Maybe that would have been too much.
The address.
Yeah.
The address in a dress.
I guess he could practice gender transition surgery when he cuts into it.
We sleek it and timorous.
He's critical of J.K. Rowling, but he's not said anything murderous or nasty. I don't really feel with this story.
He's not a bad man. I think some people feel slightly irritated that inevitably, of course, of all the people that Keir Starmer could be photographed with enjoying Burns Night, it has to be a drag queen in a kilt. It's just a bit too predictable, but there were other photographs. I think a lot of people, possibly of even older generation than me, who are just a bit tired of the fact that he could never conceivably anymore ever just be seen with a tartan-clad lollipop lady or somebody who had seen active service on behalf of the Scottish Highlanders or so. Do you know what I mean? These kind of people who used to provide decent, honourable, lifelong service rather than being a slightly tawdry, late-night, cabaret artiste. But,
like us.
Yeah, exactly, But, yeah, you're right, it's pretty trivial. Jubes got stuck in and was quoted in the Daily Mail as one viewer or something.
Oh, really?
I think that might see legal contact, but yeah.
We've got The Independent now, and staying with the theme, Wes Streeting is under fire over puberty blockers. But to paraphrase the comedian Julian Dean, I don't see what the fuss is about puberty blockers. I've been taking them since I was a little girl.
Yes, they want to know just what the trial is going to be and when it's going to start and how people are going to get onto it. It's quite interesting. I don't know a great deal about the background of this, but there is going to be a trial. It's going to start in the next few weeks and conclude in 2028 to establish essentially whether puberty blockers are safe, I think, is the point. Now, of course, a lot of people have been taking puberty blockers for some time. So if what you're looking at is a real-world trial, you would think, actually, that they could probably be asked whether it has worked or not. I
think the records aren't there. A lot of these places aren't keeping, solid records, which is part of the problem. And also they fudge the data to fit with the ideology.
It's also, we can't talk a lot about this because we don't know what it is.
No,
all we know is it's some mystery trial of some kind.
It's a black box that I can't use that term anymore.
Yes, exactly.
It's a mysterious box.
We have no idea how many people are involved, and also the complaint seems to be that people who want to be involved because they want to get the drug, but that's not the purpose of a clinical trial, right?
No.
You don't do it so that people can start taking this drug.
But they can't give it to people who don't want to do it. I mean, that would be very dangerous as well,
but
wouldn't it?
That's the same with any trial. Usually with a medical trial, people get paid to take part, and some people do it for money to be involved. But also, how about all the people who want to take part and end up being in the test group to get the placebo, for example?
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of complaints about that, because that's what I mean, is that's not the way these trials are supposed to be done. But
is it a placebo trial?
There's supposed to be. There should be placebo. I think there's some discussion about whether there's going to be also a control group. And it says here that a group that don't get the placebo or the puberty blockers, this gets sent away.
I mean, the placebo is not going to work, is it? Sometimes the placebo works. You're going to know if you've gone through...
if you get a beard. Anyway, coming up, we've got Rachel from Accounts hitting back against her nickname. Why skinny jabs are making skinny profits for booze companies, and did scientists get you hooked on processed food? See you in a moment.
Looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's plenty of sunshine on offer for many over the next couple of days in Europe, but there is some heavy rain as well, particularly for parts of Portugal, northern Spain, northwestern parts of France, and some blustery westerly winds as well continuing throughout Monday. Further east, though, there is plenty of sunshine on offer for southern parts of Italy, Greece, Cyprus, seeing plenty of sunshine throughout Monday afternoon. Temperatures here generally in the mid to high teens, with the highest temperatures likely across Tenerife, where we'll see temperatures around 22 or 23.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as a upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop.
You
need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025. What can we expect, fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. People are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollals and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of Headliners. We've got the Independent now, and Rachel Reeves has complained that her nickname, Rachel from Accounts, is unfair, presumably because she's too thick to work in accounts, Kiri.
Yeah, this is Rachel Reeves, who is the Chancellor, which I just point out for all the immigrants who've just arrived in the country over the last few minutes.
That's who's going to be giving you your money.
Yeah, she changed her LinkedIn profile from economist to retail banker, and she's been called by the nickname of Rachel from Accounts. She has said that she has spent her life proving people wrong, which kind of suggests, that the people have been calling her wrong the whole of her life. So, it's also, I wonder whether she's been proving...
Rachel, you're actually wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you...
I wonder if it includes people who said she was great, and she's like, I'll prove you wrong. I prove everyone wrong. She says some people don't want this government to succeed, which I thought was the way of a government. I mean, it'd be pretty weird if everyone in the country wanted a government to succeed. That's never happened before. So, yeah, and she also says that her budget has restored financial stability, which I'm glad someone agrees with that, which is her. Of course, it was a weird budget with a strange sort of move towards austerity and growth in a mix, and it normally is some level of both, but not in the way this has happened or
higher borrowing costs than during the trusts.
I think it was more like a tug of war with one person. You know, it didn't quite work itself out.
Yes, there's quite an interesting dynamic going on. I wonder whether it's been deliberate. There's a Labour MP called Peter Prinsley who had complained that it was misogynistic and deeply offensive and patronising and so on. And I suspect...
That's some of the good things about it.
Well, I think... I wonder whether he was told, right, you're to complain that it's misogynistic, and then Rachel can go, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Water off a duck's back, you know, I can tell. Believe me, I've seen worse than this at chucking out time. And then everyone goes, see, Rachel is of decent sort after all. Do you know what I mean? It's all very well handled. The fact is, I mean, yes, probably some people do want to see the government fail, mainly Tory MPs. I think the vast majority of the population would be quite happy to be blessed with 2% growth, massive influx of
we're desperate.
Wealth
the population,
and investment. Yes.
The population is desperate for a bit of success. Anyway, we've got The Guardian now with bad news for an industry that's dependent on big, fat party animals, Simon.
Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? All these skinny jabs are becoming very popular. People are paying up to, 100 quid a month or whatever to get them. But they find that it works out in the long run because they're not spending any money on big booze all their cakes. I think, for some time now, the stock market has recognised that these drugs will have an impact on certain other sectors.
Right.
I believe McDonald's share price went down.
When
they became popular in America because they just said people are not going to eat so much junk food. But they weren't expecting it initially to hit the booze market, the Diageos and so on, the licensed victualers. And Diageo is one of these companies that some chap has apparently said, with some kind of stock picker, as they're called, a chimpanzee with a dartboard, basically. But, we'll dignify him with that.
They're going down. OK, well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Express has Never Forget. That's the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. The Times says Starmer defies Trump over cash for defence. The Guardian has Trump accused of ethnic cleansing over calls for Palestinians to quit Gaza. The Telegraph has Starmer and Trump set path for state visit. The iNews has A&E patients may be treated at home in Streeting's overhaul of the NHS. I just hope they get a doctor in and don't let your dad do it. And the Daily Star has 4 blimey. We've got storms coming, and that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests, Kerry and Simon. Josh Howie will be here tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Simon and Lewis Schaefer. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, then stay tuned for breakfast. Goodbye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front.